revival had taken place, and so jazz bands once again played there, though the police generally stayed away. The smoke and noise and the smooth, sensuous jazz could almost be from either era, the roaring 20s or the boring 2020s. But it didn't last. Eventually, the place was shut down for good as a public health risk. For years, it remained closed and was bought by a woman in New York. That woman sold it to a corporation in Los Angeles. That corporation was owned by a conglomerate in Mexico with connections to an Iraqi company with headquarters in the Bahamas. The chain of ownership can probably be traced a bit further, but no one had traced it even that far. In place of Club Lucky, opened a simple burger joint. Permits were obtained, the government required all kinds of permits for every kind of business, and the neighborhood came back to life again. Not like the old days, but some strip malls, some outlet stores, and the burgers were good. The fries were outstanding. It seemed to do a little more traffic than a burger restaurant should. But no one was concerned much, as the neighborhood recovered a little more each year. Then there were rumors, whispers, gossip, innuendo. The federal government began investigations, and they discovered the secret of the burger joint, whose secret this time really was a secret. The burgers and fries contained unsaturated fats. With trans isomer fatty acids, partially hydrogenated oils, yummy, scrumptious, deadly trans fats. In fact, not everyone who came there to eat the deliciously greasy burgers or crispy, crunchy fries. There was a trans fat trade going on in back rooms. Vats of the stuff loaded onto vans being shipped around the country in a complex and difficult-to-track circulatory system of trucking lines, burger joints, warehouses, and fat, happy customers. A veritable poison factory clogging arteries throughout the U.S. and beyond. The entire system was never fully traced, other than a few low-level truck drivers, waitresses, and burger cooks. The masterminds of the operation were never discovered or punished. The burger joint was closed down, and as a precaution, the building was demolished, leaving an open lot of rubble and dirt. The strip malls and outlet stores closed. The neighborhoods fell into disrepair worse than ever before. Prostitutes and drug dealers roamed the streets. It was a strange place for Wesley Automatic to build his luxurious mansion. But the city needed some kind of urban renewal and subsidized the building. As agreed, he used some of the taxpayer money to build the rubberized playground for the neighborhood children. Amidst the dirt and rubble, the empty soda cans and broken bricks, next to the Automatic mansion stood the Automatic playing field. It was a white, sanitary, rubberized field about half the size of a football field. It was enclosed by rubber chain link fence, surrounded by large, thick shrubs that did their best to hide the squalor behind it. Little Rami Automatic and 7 of his friends, quote-unquote, huddled in a group. 8 little rubber snowmen. 8 white plastic marshmallow men on a rubbery gray surface surrounded by a rubber chain link fence. Hanging from posts over the fence, watchful electronic eyes kept track of the boys. "Do it," said Rami to one of the other boys. "Dare you?" The other boy was Winston Jones. Though you couldn't tell from the white bubble protective suits that each of the boys wore, Winston was the quote-unquote African-American one in the group. That meant that his skin was black, though his family could hardly trace their roots back to Africa any more than all of humankind can trace their roots back to the first primeval specimens of Homo habilis in Africa. But African-American was the government-approved label for people with black or dark brown skin, and Wesley Automatic wanted to cover as many continents as possible with his son Ram's group of friends. Winston poked his head out of the huddle to look around at the electronic guardians. Below each was a sign. "Caution, electronic equipment. Cutting wires may result in electronic shock that can be fatal or extremely uncomfortable. Breaking glass can create sharp shards that cut and cause bleeding. Loss of blood can cause death or discomfort." Below that was another sign. "Caution, rubber fence. Pushing objects into rubber fence may cause them to rebound into you, causing serious injury, possibly leading to death or discomfort. So do not push or throw or otherwise direct objects at any great or small speed deliberately or accidentally into rubber fence." Below that was yet another sign with an arrow pointing downward. "Caution, ground. Ground has been rubberized to minimize injury. Note that objects should nonetheless not be thrown, launched, pushed, prodded, thrust, or otherwise directed toward the ground, or caused to be off balance such that it might fall to the ground under the influence of gravity as death or discomfort may occur." Next to those signs was yet another sign, "Beware of signs." Do not remove these signs under penalty of law. Signs are placed here to warn you of the dangers of this area for your own safety. Removing a sign could cause you or another person to perform dangerous activities without the knowledge of the dangers involved, thereby causing death or discomfort. Also, signs sometimes have sharp edges that can cut you and cause death or discomfort. Winston put his head back into the huddle. Rami and his friends were supposed to be playing friend ball, a civilized outgrowth of the game of football. Football was outlawed for children in the 21st century for its brutality. In friend ball, two groups of kids, not teams, each got a ball and threw it to someone else. If that person caught the ball, both groups got a point. If someone missed the ball, both groups got a point. In the end, all points were added up and the group with the most points won. But Rami and his friends weren't really playing friend ball. Rami was already 9 years old, and by the age of 5 or 6, most kids understood the pointlessness of it. But the parents insisted. In fact, you could hardly call these kids friends. Each had been carefully chosen by his father to ensure that he socialized with those from various races, ethnicities, religions, and economic backgrounds. Someday, Ram would be a great man of influence, holding high office in the land, and he would need to know and experience and appeal to all kinds of lesser people. Not many of those kinds of people came into the everyday life of aristocrats like the Automatics, but these kinds of people and their families were always lacking something, and Wesley Automatic had the resources to make things happen. In return, these families brought their children to play with Ram, who otherwise had no friends. But Ram was destined for greatness, and great men often had few peers and fewer friends. So Wesley worked his magic, and poof, Ram had friends. In fact, each time Rami went out to play, his friends were new kids he'd probably never met. Probably this is because they all looked alike in their head-to-toe white rubber suits required for children engaging in outdoor activities. Dare you, the other kids joined in the chanting, but quietly, the electronic ears wouldn't pick it up well enough to decipher its meaning, and put a halt to this raucousness that could possibly lead to vigorous activity that could in turn lead to death or discomfort. Winston looked down at the ground, his ears starting to hum with the soft chanting. Winston was a little taller and a little thinner than the other boys, which made him stand out and was probably why the other boys had turned to challenge him with his dangerous activity. He had a nervous habit of tapping his forehead when considering a problem, and he was tapping now as he measured the consequences of his action. In his mind, he saw problems as physical three-dimensional shapes, with the various solutions being the black edges and colored surfaces of the shape. He literally rotated this representation of the problem in his mind, examining all sides, edges, and vertices, until he found one he liked, one that made sense to him. He liked challenges and had a little rebel streak in him. "Okay," he said, "cover me." Slowly, Winston's head dipped down while the other kids closed the gap in the huddle. They surrounded him. Winston felt the sweat begin to puddle on his forehead, too great for the absorbing antibacterial headband to absorb. He struggled, and the kids kept up a low mumbling. These kids were smart. They knew that the electronic ears would detect silence and sound an alarm. They knew the precise decibel level that would keep the ears distracted. Winston struggled a bit more. His arms ached. His left leg cramped for a moment, but he massaged it gently and it relaxed. He wriggled as the other children watched. Ram's eyes widened, both amazed at Winston's daring, but also disgusted by his disobedience. A few of the boys gasped. The human igloo remained solid, covering Winston's activity. A few more gasps emanated from the huddle. There was a zipping sound, then another. The sound of rubber on rubber, then rubber on flesh, then more zipping. A really loud gasp was followed by a few shouts. The electronic ears perked up. The electronic eyes began swiveling. The electronic guardians knew something was amiss. The human igloo broke wide open, and Winston Jones emerged completely naked, black, unprotected skin in the direct rays of the sun. "Wahoo!" screamed Winston as he broke from the huddle and ran towards the fence. Electronic eyes were pivoting wildly. Red lights atop the fence began flashing crazily. "Wahoo!" screamed Winston again. The other kids stared in awe. An alarm went off. Sirens rang loudly. Winston was running right toward the fence. The mouths of the children behind their antibacterial masks dropped open in wonder and amazement. A voice came across the loudspeaker, calm but insistent. "Please stop. Your actions may cause injury to yourself or others." The message repeated as Winston leapt towards the fence and hit it naked, chest first, and bounced back several feet, landing on the rubbery ground, laughing. "Emergency," declared the voice from the electronic guardians. Emergency, an injury may have occurred. Imelda flung open the door from the great house next to the lot to see a naked Winston writhing in pain. At least that's what she thought, as she cried, "Ay, Dios mío," and fainted. Actually, Winston was dancing and pounding his fists in the air and laughing. The other kids watched, smiling behind their masks and clapping their padded gloves in a low, muffled, rhythmic thudding. Except for little Ronnie Automatic, who gnashed his teeth and clenched his fists. That's it. I don't know if there's any questions, if anybody has any questions about anything.
So you outline your stuff all the way, always when you write, you have like from the beginning to the end, because I didn't think an author actually would do that, kind of. Because of your engineering background, is that so? It was like for me amazing that you know right away how this is going. I've never heard that.
So I've talked to a lot of writers, and I think, and I've also read about writers, and I actually think that most novelists do that. There are some that don't, like Stephen King. Actually, I prefer that he did, but there's some people who can write from beginning to end and create something terrific, but I think very few can do that. I know among the people I was working with in this class in Vermont, I think the problem is they would write and it wouldn't go anywhere. I mean, if you're doing a literary, when I say a literary novel, like something that's going to be not a bestseller, but there's some really great novels that, an example is John Updike. Have you read John Updike? He does, rabbit things. Hi.
I'm Laura, I'm the Children's Librarian here. Oh. Thank you so much for coming to speak.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Actually, usually at this time, we invite the librarian to come here and you read them one of your book.
Sure, yeah. I just finished it. Let me finish
the
thing with John Updike. If anybody's read John Updike, I like John Updike. Not one of my favorites. I mean, another person I think is the guy who wrote The World According to Garp.
Irving.
Yeah, John Irving. I actually met him briefly and talked to him. I mean, those people can write stories, but I think, just from beginning to end without knowing where they're going. But, I think Stephen King does it because he can craft a beautiful sentence that's really descriptive, and it doesn't matter if it goes anywhere. And a great scene, and, whether it's scary or beautiful, he can do that. With John Updike, I'm not a big fan of John Updike, but he talks about kind of everyday existence. So he just talks about this happened, this happened, this happened. One I do like is the guy who did Lonesome Dove.
McMurtry.
McMurtry, right, McMurtry. Him, I love his writing because the characters are so interesting and the situations are so interesting that I could just read one chapter and be happy, and I'm just glad there's another chapter and another chapter. But I personally think if you want to have a story, where you have the character develop from from beginning to end and change, or some situation happen that gets resolved. I think if you don't know what the beginning and end is, I've seen people do this, and I think it just doesn't work. But that's my opinion. People disagree with me, but I know at this Vermont Studio Center, there's some really great writers, but I got bored of reading their stuff because the sentences were terrific, but the characters weren't doing anything. Anyway, so that's my way of doing it. Yeah.
Do you have any other books ready to publish? Regular selection again.
Yeah. But I guess I'm not sure if I have bad luck or what, but when this book came out, there's an editor at HarperCollins named Adam Bellow. He's the son of Saul Bellow, who won a Nobel Prize in Literature. And Adam Bellow is a conservative, politically. Interesting, his brother came to speak at a bookstore near us in Menlo Park, up in the Bay Area. And I didn't know much about his brother. When I listened to his brother talk, who had written a book, he actually mentioned Adam. And their father, Saul, was very conservative politically. Adam is very conservative politically. And his other brother, I think it's David Bellow, was very liberal politically. And they really don't get along, which was interesting. But Adam read my book and really liked it. but he said HarperCollins won't publish it. Not so much that it's conservative, but it's conservative political fiction. It's like conservative and political fiction just don't go together. Political fiction is hard enough. Conservative political fiction, he said, is really hard. So he was starting and it's a long answer to your question, he was starting a website, and they wanted to feature my book for conservative writers. It's called libertyisland.org. Or if you look up Liberty Island, it's a bunch of conservative writers, fiction writers. And my book was going to be the big one, it's going to be the first one. Well, they fell a year and a half behind schedule. By the time they came out, he said to me, well, I can't make a big deal about a book that's a year and a half old, so write another one. It's like, okay, I mean, it's not like something I can just do, so, you know, maybe I'll try someday, but I don't have anything in the works. So I have the books for you. I have 3 books for you.
Oh, goodness.
And the rest are for sale if anybody wants them. But glad to give you a copy of each of them.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
Do you want me to sign it?
Sure.
Sure.
Wonderful.
Does somebody have a pen? Do we have a pen?
In the box.
Let's get nicer one there. Oh,
Always.
Oh, I like that.
It's our best.
I got it.
You never know.
Now you're going to close that too. Well, thank you so much. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. Have a lovely evening. Thank you. Does anyone need their parking validated along the way?
Thank you so much for coming. Mike from San Jose, actually, he really enjoyed your talk, and especially your very interesting story. Thanks for coming.
Thanks again.